At dawn in the spring of 1942, I sat on the cold hull of my Panzer IV and watched the steppe breathe. A thin ribbon of mist clung to the grass, moving with the wind like something alive. For a moment, just a moment, it felt peaceful. We were waking the machines the way soldiers always do. Shaking dust from vision slits, scraping grease onto stubborn gears, cursing at jammed casings. My driver muttered about fuel again. My gunner kept wiping his scope even though it was already spotless. Someone joked about lunch, someone else about mail from home. Ordinary sounds in an extraordinary place. Across the no-man's land, I could see the same routine on the Soviet side through my binoculars. Men tightening track bolts. Stretching against the cold. Laughing at something crude. And there, motionless, blunt, confident, A-34 sat like a stone guardian, its armor still scarred from the glancing hits we'd thrown at it in past weeks. They looked calm. We looked calm. But something under that calm felt wrong. At first it was only a vibration in the soles of my boots, faint, cautious, like the earth was whispering a warning. Then a new sound rolled through the mist. Not diesel, not thunder, something heavier, deeper. I remember swallowing hard. I remember thinking, this morning is different. This is the last breath before something breaks. And if you're watching, listening, imagining this moment with me, don't look away. Because what happened next would rewrite everything we thought we knew about this war. If you think you understand the balance between German steel and Soviet armor in 1942, trust me, you've only heard half the story. Stay with me. 4 months before that morning, I had learned to hate the shape of AT-34. From the turret of my old Panzer IV, the war on the Eastern Front felt like a bad joke told at our expense. Our Panzer IIIs and short-barreled IVs could rattle those Soviet monsters, chip paint, leave bright scars on their hulls, but not stop them. We'd hit them at 200 meters, 100 even less, and watch the rounds spark off and vanish into the fields behind. On paper, we were the professionals, the heirs of Blitzkrieg. In reality, every time AT-34 appeared on the horizon, the word in the headset wasn't engagement. It was punishment. I remember one fight in the autumn mud, 3 of our tanks against 2 T-34s. We fired until the barrels glowed, until the loader's hands bled through his gloves. We knocked off fenders, smashed external tanks, broke tracks, and still one of them limped away coughing smoke, its turret turning back toward us like an insult. That night I wrote in my notebook, speed theirs, armor theirs, guns theirs. We bring the doctrine. They bring the steel. If you've ever seen the documentaries that talk about German technical superiority, understand this. In early 1942, from where I was sitting, that superiority did not exist. Out here the T-34 ruled. And then this map square, this nameless fold in the steppe, changed everything. A week before that dawn we were pulled back to a rail siding. Crews clustered around a flat car like kids around a Christmas tree. On it stood a Panzer IV that looked almost familiar, until you saw the gun. Longer, thinner, predatory. The new 7.5 centimeters high velocity, the one we'd only heard rumors about. The ordnance officer slapped the barrel like a proud father. Now, he said, you can kill them from the front. No one quite believed him. Not yet. We'd lived too long under the T-34's shadow. But they reassigned me to that upgraded 4, and suddenly this patch of ground became a test site for an idea that sounded almost like science fiction. A German tank that could meet AT-34 head-on and win. Looking back now, with all the numbers and after-action reports in hand, I can tell you this crossroads was a hinge in armored history. But that morning all I knew was simple. Both sides thought they understood the rules. We were about to find out those rules were already dead. We called it a routine ambush, the kind you could run half asleep. Our new Panzer IV crouched behind a rise in the earth, hull angled just so, turret low, gunner steadying his breath. The plan was simple. Let the Soviets roll into the kill zone, fire, reposition, disappear. We'd done this 100 times before, usually ending with us retreating while the T-34 shrugged off our hits like rain. But this morning, even before the first shot, something in me felt unsettled. Maybe it was the mist, thick enough to swallow sound. Maybe it was the new gun, long and cold, humming faintly with potential. Or maybe it was the quiet confidence in my loader's voice, the way he whispered, we might actually do it today. I didn't answer. I didn't dare hope. Then a silhouette emerged from the fog, square turret, sloped armor, tracks cutting through the wet grass. AT-34. Its hull was still scarred from old ricochets, pale streaks where our shells had once failed. It moved without hurry, without fear, like a man walking into a familiar bar fight he'd already won. Target, my gunner murmured. 280 meters. Before, that distance would have felt suicidal. Today, with the new KWK-40 gun, it felt like a question waiting for an answer. The T-34 halted, turret rotating lazily toward our sector. You could almost sense its crew bracing for the inevitable clang of another useless German round bouncing off their armor. They had no idea the battlefield had changed overnight. Loaded. Steady. I exhaled. Time thinned. Fire. The new round didn't sound like our old shells. It cracked the morning open, sharp, violent, decisive. Through my binoculars I watched it streak across the field, a white ghost ripping through the fog. It struck low between two old impact scars. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The Soviet tank jerked as if punched by an invisible giant. Smoke burst from the turret seam. Its engine coughed once, and died. No ricochet. No shrug. No rolling away into legend. Just stillness. For a heartbeat, no one in my crew spoke. We weren't cheering. We weren't triumphant. We were stunned, like we'd just seen a god bleed. Hit, my gunner whispered, voice trembling. We penetrated. The loader stared through the slit, eyes wide. Sir, we killed a T-34. From the front. In that silent crater of disbelief, I understood the truth. History had just tilted. The rules we lived under, the fear, the hopeless engagements, the impossible armor, were gone. Our world had broken open, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first kill didn't bring relief. It brought fury. The moment that T-34 stopped moving, the steppe seemed to inhale, and then the world erupted. From the mist ahead, more Soviet armor surged forward, engines roaring, tracks grinding frozen earth into mud. They weren't probing. They were charging, determined to crush whatever ghost had just killed their comrade. Multiple contacts. 3, no 5, my gunner shouted. I slammed the hatch shut and felt the whole tank tremble as the driver threw us into a new position. Our ambush, once neat and calculated, disintegrated instantly. The Soviets weren't stunned. They were enraged. Rounds began punching into the ground around us, fountains of soil spraying across the hull. The familiar metallic scream of a T-34 shell skidded off a rock near our flank. Another hit a wreck behind us and tore it open like a tin can. Smoke. Get us cover. White clouds spilled across the field as our grenades burst, but it was only a veil, thin, fragile. Through it I could see shapes moving, fast, coordinated, ruthless. The Soviets had learned too. Their counterattack was sharper than anything we'd faced in months. We fired again, the recoil hammering through my ribs. The shell streaked into the fog, then nothing. A miss. My stomach tightened. Gun jam, the loader barked, panic edging his voice. He slammed the breech, yanked the casing free, cursed as another jammed behind it. Sweat poured down his face despite the cold. Clear it now. Behind us, 2 other Panzer IVs tried to reposition but bogged down in thawing mud. I could hear their engines screaming for traction, treads spinning helplessly as Soviet rounds smashed into the earth around them. Radio chatter dissolved into chaos. Lost our spotter, tree line compromised, taking fire blind, need to pull back, engine hit. Every second the situation worsened. A-34 burst through the smoke directly ahead, only 100 meters out. Its gun turned toward us with terrifying speed. Back. Reverse. Our driver responded instantly, the tank lurching as he pushed the engine to its limits. A Soviet round slammed into the ground so close the shockwave rattled my teeth. Finally the loader roared, clear. Loaded. We fired at point-blank range. The shell struck the T-34 beneath its turret, sparks, then fire. The Soviet tank shuddered, coughed black smoke, and stopped. But there were more coming. Too many. Our victory had opened a door we weren't ready for. The battle was no longer a duel of armor. It had become a storm, unpredictable, violent, merciless. And now both armies were scrambling to survive a battlefield where the old rules had died only minutes ago. People talk about tanks like they're beasts, steel predators, iron monsters born for killing. But inside them it's just men. Soft, breakable men trying to act like the armor makes them invincible. After those first chaotic minutes, the battle slowed just enough for fear to catch up with us. My gunner, a 19-year-old from Cologne who still carried his mother's rosary, kept wiping his hands on his trousers. They wouldn't stop shaking. Every time he pulled the trigger, he flinched as if expecting the round to blow up inside the barrel. I saw them burn, he whispered once, not looking at me. I shot them and they burned. His voice wasn't proud. It was horrified. My driver, older, a quiet mechanic from Essen, kept his eyes fixed on the periscope. Sweat ran down his neck despite the cold. My instructor said the Panzer IV was outdated, he muttered. Said it was for holding lines, not breaking them. Now we're doing the impossible? How long before the impossible kills us too? I didn't answer. I didn't have the right words. Maybe no commander does. Even I felt the weight. My decision, my order, had put that first shell into AT-34's weak spot. It was strategy on paper, triumph in the after-action report, but in the real world, in this metal coffin, it meant I had ended lives with a gesture. Across the field, the Soviets were changing too. The T-34s that once advanced with the confidence of gods now moved like wounded animals, fast, erratic, unsure. I caught glimpses through gaps in the smoke. A loader throwing himself against a jammed hatch, a commander waving his pistol at his driver to reverse faster, another man scrambling out of a burning turret with his coat on fire. One T-34 wheeled suddenly, nearly ramming its own infantry in panic. Another fired wildly, the round shattering a birch tree as its crew tried to hit something, anything to make the fear go away. Propaganda had promised them invincibility. Reality had just peeled that lie away in a single blast of our new gun. Smoke grenades burst around them as Soviet crews tried desperately to screen their wounded tank. I watched one man, face blackened with soot, jacket scorched, throw his arm around a comrade who could barely stand. They stumbled through the haze together, leaving the crippled vehicle behind as it hissed and burned. In those moments, the battlefield wasn't steel and fire anymore. It was people, exhausted, terrified, furious people trapped in machines that could kill them quicker than any bullet. Courage, fear, desperation. It all mixed into one choking fog. The war wasn't abstract. It wasn't lines on a map or numbers in a report. It was the sound of a man screaming inside a burning turret. It was my gunner whispering, "I'm sorry," after every shot. It was the knowledge that both sides were one mistake away from being sealed inside their own iron coffin. And as the smoke thickened and engines roared back to life, I understood. This wasn't just a battle of machines. It was the moment when every man inside those machines realized the truth. Armor fails, rules fail, certainty fails. Only fear and will remain. The climax came so fast it felt like being dragged into a furnace. We had fallen back to a shallow ridge, tracks caked with mud, lungs burning from cordite and exhaust. Ahead of us, the Soviets regrouped, not retreating, not hesitating, but forming a spearhead. 3 T-34s fanned out, turrets snapping toward our position with a precision that told me one thing. They meant to finish us. Contact front. 200 meters? My gunner barked. 200 meters. That was pistol range for tanks. At that distance, the battlefield stopped being a contest of doctrine and became a coin toss soaked in blood. Hold, I ordered, even though my voice trembled. The first T-34 fired. The round slammed into the earth just short of our bow, showering the tank in dirt and stone. The second round struck our road wheel with a screaming clang that rattled every bone in my body. The entire left side lurched. We're hit. Wheels gone, the driver yelled. But we were still alive. A third Soviet round scraped across the turret ring, a sound so sharp and metallic it felt like teeth scraping bone. 1 centimeter deeper and the turret would have locked, sealing our fate. Fire! I shouted. Our gun roared. The recoil punched my shoulder even through the braces. The shell struck the lead T-34 dead center. Sparks erupted. Smoke poured from the seams. The tank slowed, but kept moving. Load again. The loader rammed another round, hands fumbling. The Soviets were closing fast, too fast. Their silhouettes blurred through the smoke, monstrous shapes made of steel and fury. Their machine guns opened up, rounds pinging off our hull, punching tiny constellations into the armor. Second one's flanking us, the gunner warned. I pivoted the cupola. He was right. 1 T-34 was angling hard, trying to get a clean shot into our side. Driver forward. Cut his angle. We lurched forward violently. The damaged wheel screamed in protest, sparks grinding beneath us. The Soviets didn't expect the charge. For a second, their formation wavered. That second saved us. Gun on the left tank. Kill him. The barrel swung. The loader slammed the breech shut. Up. Fire. The shell hit the flanking T-34 under its turret. The explosion blew the hatch open, a column of fire spearing upward. A figure crawled out, burning, waving his arms as he collapsed into the snow. But the third Soviet tank was already firing. The shot tore past our turret so close I felt the heat of the air rip past my cheek. The gunner cursed, realigning. The loader reached for another round, hands slipping with sweat and blood. Last one, he shouted. The The Soviet tank advanced straight toward us, 50 tons of momentum and rage. "Take him," I ordered, voice cracking. Our gun fired. The world shook. The Soviet tank jerked, froze, and then collapsed inward as flames filled the fighting compartment. Its momentum carried it another meter before it stopped completely, smoke curling from every seam. For a long moment, everything went silent, except for the crackle of burning steel and the hiss of boiling coolant. 3 T-34s. Point blank. And somehow, impossibly, we were still breathing. But as I looked at the shattered field, at the wrecks glowing orange through the smoke, I understood the real truth. This wasn't victory. This was the death of a myth, on both sides. The Soviets had learned the T-34 could fall. And we had learned the cost of proving it. When the shooting finally died, the silence felt unnatural, like the battlefield itself was holding its breath, unsure what came next. Smoke hung low over the steppe, thick enough to taste, and every wreck glowed like a furnace buried in the grass. Our tank hissed and crackled beneath me, armor still hot from near hits and frantic maneuvering. No one spoke at first. My crew sat in a stunned, exhausted quiet, the kind of quiet that comes only after you've survived something you weren't supposed to. My gunner leaned back from his scope, eyes glassy, breathing shallow. The driver slumped over his controls, both hands trembling uncontrollably. Even the loader, usually unstoppable, just stared at the empty ammo rack, lips moving silently as if counting prayers. I climbed out of the cupola and stood on the turret, letting the cold air hit my face. Across the field lay the remains of a myth, 3 T-34s reduced to burning silhouettes, their smoke twisting into the morning sky like torn black flags. For months those tanks had haunted our dreams, untouchable, unstoppable, legends of steel born from Soviet factories we could barely comprehend. But now, they were just wrecks, metal, fallible, and the implications hit harder than any shell. Within hours, word of our engagement spread. Staff officers arrived, boots still clean, notebooks ready. They circled the wrecks like archaeologists discovering some extinct predator. Measurements were taken. Angles studied. Our new long-barreled gun was sketched and resketched in diagrams. They spoke in low, excited tones about penetration values, revised doctrines, production quotas. I listened from the turret, feeling strangely detached. They spoke of strategy, but I remembered the faces of the Soviet crew bailing from their burning tank. They spoke of breakthroughs, but I remembered how close we came to dying in that duel. They spoke of finally correcting the balance, but I remembered that balance shifting under our feet like cracking ice. And across the lines, the Soviets were undergoing their own transformation. For months, their confidence had been absolute. The T-34 had carried them through the worst days of 1941 and 1942. Its silhouette was a promise. Armor the Germans couldn't pierce, mobility they couldn't match, firepower they couldn't absorb. Entire units advanced believing nothing on earth could challenge them. But now their commanders sent urgent reports back to headquarters. Engineers demanded thicker armor. Tacticians revised approaches. Letters home spoke of a new German gun with fear instead of pride. The Soviets didn't break. They never broke. But something inside their armored core cracked that day. The illusion was gone. By nightfall, the battlefield had changed in ways no one could fully explain yet. Not the generals. Not the engineers. Not even those of us who lived it. But we all felt the truth. The old era, the one shaped by the T-34's invincibility, had died that morning. And whatever war came next, it would be far deadlier, far faster, and far less predictable than the one we thought we knew.